Trust, loyalty, respect, tsunami, siren, morality police, all these buzzwords and more on Drop Your Buffs, a podcast discussing Australian Survivor. On this podcast, we'll be discussing Australian Survivor that aired on Monday the 24th and Tuesday the 25th of October. So if you haven't seen this episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, grab your things and head back to camp. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just go to dropyourbuffs.com for more details. My name is Stuart and with me tonight is special guests Eliana. Hi Eliana, how are you?
Good, thanks.
And my usual co-host Craig. How's it going?
G'day, Stu. I'm a little speechless.
Speechless, exactly. We've just come straight off the back of that finale episode, and look, I mean, we'll go back and talk about Monday night's episode as well. But just to say, wow, what an amazing episode that was!
It left the best to last in what's been an amazing series all the way through. It's been a great season, and that last episode had it all.
I think it's had a few ups and downs actually, but I think it definitely finished on a strong note, and it was awesome.
One of the most amazing episodes of Survivor I've ever seen. That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there was hardly a dry eye in the room where I was watching it. It
was a mess.
It was a very very emotionally charged episode, wasn't it?
Unbelievable, truly amazing. Well done, everyone involved. Well done.
Okay, well, should we just take us back to Monday night?
Quieter times, less dramatic moments.
Well, I thought I'd just quickly start off with just a quick recap of the jury villa where Matt first went to the jury.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had a quick look at that. He lost about 10 kilos.
Did he really?
That was probably about the most that any of the castaways lost.
Wow, he didn't look like he had
10 kilos.
I
yeah,
you forget what they looked like way back at the start, but
yeah,
that's amazing.
He was saying that he didn't expect to get that far in the game anyway, so I think he was so happy to even get to the jury. But he talked about his dumb, blind faith in people. I think that's something that you brought up a few times about. He was always surprised that he wasn't in the alliance he thought he was.
Yeah, that's right. Despite being told numerous times that, I think he was, as we've talked about before, numerous people, Jenna Louise, Sue. There was one other who did it as well, but on their way out, they all said, "You are not part of the alliance you think they are," and he just wouldn't believe them. And I think he was absolutely relying on what normally works for him, and that is being able to read people. But in the game of Survivor, it didn't work the way he expected, and I think he was genuinely surprised by that.
Well, it was funny because when he gets back to his room and he opens his suitcase, which, by the way, he had 6 caps in there, like 6 hats in there. He said he's a bit obsessed with hats for some reason. But
he did have some cool caps.
Yeah. But beside that, he had a notebook. He was going through his notebook because on the plane over to Samoa, when, before the Survivor had actually started, he's looking around on the plane thinking, I think some of these people are going to be on this series of Survivor with me. And so he's just reading out one of the notes that he said.
Oh, my gosh. As if tonight couldn't get any more dramatic, Stuart. Now you're pulling this one on me.
That's right. And he's saying, he's talking about this guy he can see on the plane. He says, I think he might be a personal trainer or maybe a sportsman. Seems like a nice guy. Not too much beefcake. Potential leader. So obviously talking about Lee, but he didn't know Lee at that time.
Yeah.
But he was making notes about various people on the plane.
Wow.
So,
that's incredible.
So the game is already on. So, and then
I wonder if that helped him. I wonder if doing that actually helped.
Well, I guess at least it got him as far as the jury, but
I'm just amazed that they would fly them over on the same aircraft. Wouldn't you think they'd try and fly them? Maybe they did, but fly them over in smaller groups and.
Well, I've heard on the US Survivor from Stephen Fishback, and I heard him talking about it on some podcast. And when he went over on his last season, they all knew that they were all in the same season of Survivor, but they were given strict instructions that they weren't allowed to talk to each other. So all on the plane, no one could speak for the whole journey.
That was the All Stars one, was it?
It was the one. Yeah, it was. Well, it was the one that was just on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like
a little bit different, I suppose, because they would have recognised each other and would have known a lot of them. But
I guess
in this case, they wouldn't have.
No.
Oh, wow. No. That's I've never heard of a Survivor doing that before. That's pretty amazing. It's a long way to Samoa. I suppose you got to fill your time in somehow.
That's right. That's right. And then, of course, everyone that gets admitted to the jury villa has to have their little one-on-one with Nick, because Nick has to get stuff off his chest every time that someone new
has that
comes.
been happening as well?
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, of course, exactly. So he seeks an apology from Matt for harsh words that Matt said about Nick when Nick was voted out, which I'm not even sure.
I'd have to go back into my notes to remember what that was about.
Well, Nick wasn't even there, so he only heard it through other jury members
I
told
see.
him about Matt saying all this stuff, and then Nick was saying, "Oh, look, I'm a big boy with thick skin." And I'm going, "You've got to be kidding!" It was. Oh. So anyway, Nick accepted Matt's apology. That seemed to make him happy. So
Right.
so yeah. So anyway, Monday night's episode.
Yeah. It just seems like such a long time ago.
It does. Look, I mean, not a lot happened in that episode, really. It was a bit of a downer episode, I think, in many respects. So that's why I'm glad that the final episode really came back very good.
I guess it was reasonably predictable. It was, I think. I mean, Flick said at the beginning of the episode she thought it was 3-1 against her, which is basically ultimately what happened, wasn't it?
That's how it panned out.
That's how it panned out. Yeah, it was 3-1 against her, and I mean, that was. I mean, I'm sure Christy was thinking along the way of what would work and what wouldn't. Yeah.
No, well, it was day 52, and Elle sort of starts by saying to Flick, "I really wish you didn't make that move, Flick."
Yeah.
So that was the sort of start of the of that bad blood between them, really. That,
I think it probably went back a little bit further. I mean, I think it probably all started when Brooke was blindsided. I think Elle probably would have felt a little bit aggrieved by that, given how strong that threat was.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah,
that's right. And then Christy is on camera questioning whether she will stick with Lee and Elle to the end. And I'm thinking, really?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, there's, she was just constantly questioning whether she's going to do this or that or whatever, and without actually doing anything in the end. It was a bit frustrating for us as viewers to watch as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Flick says she has a lot of ass kissing to do. So
that was after they had their little powwow where they all talked about things they were proud of.
Right.
I must say in this episode, and again, this might have been the editing, but I got quite. Flick kept saying, I haven't come here to come third. I've come here to win this game. And she must have said it so many times. And it was like, we get the point, Channel 10. We get the point.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that was laboured a bit hard. I think it just went on and on and on. Gee, they got excited about that feast, didn't they? When the food turned up, it didn't look like there was very much of it either.
Well, at first they were very excited, and I couldn't actually see what it was that they were getting. It was, they weren't really showing much of what the feast was.
It looked like some palm fronds with a bit of tofu on it or something.
Yeah, well, is that taro? Is that what that was? It was kind of like
I'm no expert on
like a potato type looking sort of a thing there. And I thought
it could have been. I'm no expert on Samoan cuisine.
And
then how transparent was Flick trying to get some practice building a fire?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I know.
I mean, how obvious was that?
I can't remember how successful was she when they did that fire challenge a few weeks ago when they had to make a fire, but maybe she didn't have to do it at that time. But remember they had a bit where they had to make a fire.
Well, did she get? Not everyone went through to the final.
No,
sorry.
No, that's
who was there at the end? I can't remember who was there at the end.
No.
And then of course Christy was having a go at it as well in the early hours of the morning.
Yes.
It's like she got out of bed really early to go and practice making fire down on the beach. I just thought that was all really funny.
I mean, I would have thought if I was on Survivor, I would be probably volunteering to make the fire every day, so you have
absolutely
daily practice.
Absolutely.
just in case
I'd be making fires before I even left Australia, I reckon.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to build a fire. So maybe we didn't see a lot of fire making going on, but perhaps it looks like Lee did a lot of that, obviously.
Yeah,
way back. I know Connor was always busy tending the fire way back when. Right. He was constantly sort of plucking bits of husk off coconut and throwing it on the fire and making fire. So maybe only a small number of people were really actively involved in it. And clearly Flick and Christy weren't because they were practicing.
That's right. Now, Elle was she was feeling betrayed by Flick, but it's funny because she was saying that she thinks of her as a little sister, not so much with Christy though. So she's... so it really felt like Christy was really more just a vote
Yeah.
At least as far as Elle was concerned, it was just a vote for her. It wasn't really, wasn't much of a bond there.
That's right. And meanwhile, though, Lee was saying things like Flick would sell her own grandmother to get further in the game, which I thought was a bit harsh.
It was. I mean, yeah. What else is she supposed to do? Just lie down and just get voted out? It's
You got to fight for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Agreed. Anyway, on we went to immunity.
Yes,
immunity challenge. Combination of previous challenges we've seen. We had ropes and locks and barrel rolls and pushing long makeshift posts through fences to get keys and all that good fun. And then, of course, a puzzle at the end. All that good fun stuff we've seen over and over.
Yeah, that's right.
Nice close challenge in the end, and Elle came through and had a win at a crucial time.
It was good. It did sort of seesaw a bit, didn't it? That
it did,
as to who was in it. So really, basically, everyone was in it apart from Christy. Really wasn't.
Although even she was towards the end, she got reasonably close, I think.
Right.
Yeah. But a good win to Elle there. Very, very good time for her to pull that one out.
Yes, it definitely was.
Because I think had she not won immunity there, I think that might have been. It could have been a different story at that tribal council.
That's true, because even though Christy would never vote Lee out, she may be more inclined to vote Elle out.
Yeah,
at
that's
that
right.
time.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good point.
Then Flick came out with an amazing comment after that challenge. I'm the most deserving player out here, she said, but I'm the one on the chopping block. You got any thoughts on that comment?
Well, I think she's really put a lot in what she believes her big moves are, and that because she's done those big moves, that she's the most deserving player. I think that's what she's talking about. And Lee and Elle really haven't done any big moves. They've just stuck to a really good alliance. And
hey, this proves though that sticking together as a strong two the whole way through works. And we've seen this before. We've seen this with Colby and Tina way back in season 2, which was actually an Australian series of the American season.
Richard and Rudy.
And Richard and Rudy is another one. But for me, the biggest one was Colby and Tina, and they were unwavering the whole way through. This team of two, they worked together, and ultimately it helped Tina get the win in that series. It didn't quite work out that way this time, but it certainly got one of them all the way to the end. It's a powerful thing if you can.
It is.
Boston Rob and Amber was another one.
Yeah.
In that series.
I think the fault of these particular castaways was that they didn't pick on that early enough, or they didn't really see it as much of a threat as they probably should have, because normally in US Survivor, people try and jump on that pretty much straight away, and they don't like couples,
But again, I mean, this is a bit of a common theme that went all the way through this season, is that people are being told this. One by one, as people exited at Tribal Council, their parting gift was to say, hey, you need to look around and see what's going here. You have a very strong alliance going. And it wasn't just the Lee Elle alliance either at times. It was the whole Brooke, the whole Brooke Flick Elle thing that was going on.
Yep.
And time again, people were being told, this is happening, you need to do something about it. And time again, they didn't.
That's right. Right. Yeah, so Flick's trying to convince Christy that Lee and Elle will take each other to the final too.
Yep.
And so
Flick was getting a bit desperate throughout all this period, wasn't she?
She was trying anything.
Yeah.
And so she proposed a 2-2 vote that would lead to a fire challenge, and have it decided that way, which would have made great TV.
Yes, it would have been very dramatic.
And I think that even Lee could could sort of see the whole drama in the fire challenge, but he said, but hang on a second, that could potentially expose me. Which
spot on. He was absolutely right about that. It's not a risk he could take. He also had, I think, one of the quotes of the season at about this point in the episode.
I know the one you mean. Okay,
this is the one where he says, "Desperation is a stinky cologne, and hers stinks at the moment." That is fantastic. That's one of the best analogies I've ever heard.
Well, I hadn't heard that expression before. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard that one before.
But I
love it.
It does exist though, because I was googling it, and it was
there's a cologne called Desperation. Is that what you're saying?
No. But there's a saying. Desperation is a stinky cologne is a saying.
Never heard it.
So it wasn't something that Lee just made up on the spot. It's
wow.
It's a thing, but it wasn't a thing that I'd heard before.
I'm learning a lot tonight.
Well, Tribal
Council. Yep.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Elle? She basically admitted that she was going to take Lee to the final.
She flat out said it. She flat out said it, and my reaction to that was, oh gosh, that could change everything.
Yeah.
I felt that she may have just thrown Lee completely under the bus by saying that.
I'm not sure why she said that. Maybe
she was basically forced. She was asked the direct question.
Yeah,
I think I can't remember who asked it, but
I think it may have been JLP even maybe was probing.
It may have been, yeah. But my reaction was when she said it was like, oh my gosh, that's not a good bit of strategy. From I mean, she was fine. She had the necklace around her neck, but from Lee's point of view, that could have seriously backfired against him.
Exactly. And Christy, then when she's sort of being asked about what her sort of strategy is and what she's thinking, she just says she just believes she needs to make it to the final 3 and then trust in herself to win the immunity. And you could see the jury did the biggest face palm you've ever seen.
It's like, are you kidding me? You're not going to win immunity.
No, there was so much eye rolling and. Okay.
Yep.
The votes, Craig.
Pretty predictable. 3-1 to Flick in the end. Three votes to Flick and 1 to Lee. I don't need to go through who voted for who because it's all pretty obvious.
That's right.
And Flick's little parting gift as she walked out of the tribal council area was to say to Christy, "You're an idiot."
Well, they are famous last words, aren't they? But we'll see what happens with that though, because I think Flick had to eat her words in the end, didn't she?
Very much so.
But Flick. You played a tough and aggressive game, and no one can fault you for that 100%.
Yeah, well played, Flick.
Well, with the Flick at the jury villa, she only lost about 3 kilos. So I think
is that right?
Yeah, so that was one of the least amounts there. So,
but to be fair, she got lots of rewards. She got lots of very nice dinners that other people just didn't get.
Exactly. So
I mean, Flick played her own strategy. It was a very aggressive game. She played it hard. She left nothing on the table. But I do have to say that she and several others had an easier run, certainly through the first half of the game. I mean, I can't remember how long that run was, but Sanapu didn't go to tribal council for
the first half of the season, basically.
Hardly at all.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge advantage for anyone who was in that situation. Lee benefited from that, Elle benefited from that, Brooke benefited from that. There were quite a few of them. Whereas, meanwhile, over on the other side, you had Christy just having to doggedly fight her way through along with others.
Yep.
But that's it. Flick played a strong game and was
Well, she found it a bit uncomfortable at the jury dinner for her first dinner because she didn't realise how much everyone was going to be upset with her.
Oh, really? Well,
she thought that she'd have a few problems, with Brooke and so on. But basically, everyone wasn't happy with Flick, and she got grilled a bit at dinner about how come she did this and how come she did that, and saying I thought that we were close friends, and we,
Oh, really?
So it was.
It's interesting how the gameplay continues, even though they've all been voted out, and they're not in it anymore to win the game, but they're now out. They're mixing with their former tribe mates.
That's right.
In a different environment, and they're still having those conversations.
Well, out of all the people going to jury on those jury villa videos, Flick, I think, found it the hardest.
Really?
When she first met up with the people on the jury.
Really? It just shows what strong personal relationships, positive and negative, form in this thing.
That's right.
And they're all human, and okay, they're playing a game, and some people are able to segregate that perhaps better than others, but at the end of the day, genuine feelings get hurt. It must be a pretty intense experience being out there.
But then we just go from feelings onto armpit hair because Flick tells us how much her armpit hair has been growing, lots of stuff.
Oh my God, really? I don't feel the need to go any further with that. I don't really need to know.
And then just finally on the jury villa, Matt and Flick had a one-on-one. So for the first time, Nick didn't actually get involved with it,
right? With his not that we saw anyway.
Habitual one-on-one, but so Matt sort of seemed pretty aggrieved. Flick wasn't particularly, she wasn't particularly upset with what she'd done to Matt at all.
So what was he upset about? The fact that she voted him out?
Yeah, and I think again because Matt thought that they had this deal to try and get rid of Lee or Elle and all that sort of stuff, and Flick changed her vote, which is the last one that he was at, and they didn't really seem to resolve their differences. So it's not like with a little one-on-one, it didn't let it was left.
And of course, Christy was part of that as well. In fact, when Matt was voted out, he got 3 votes in that tribal council, and they were Flick, Christy, and Lee.
So that's right.
Interesting. So, on to the main
Okay,
event.
Tuesday night
Day
finale.
55. What an epic. What an epic. This is, as I said, this is one of the greatest Survivor episodes I have ever seen.
It was very well done, particularly after the second last episode just felt a bit flat in the end, and I was a bit worried.
There was one earlier last week as well where not a great deal happened as well.
Yeah, so they totally redeemed themselves.
Absolutely.
Did you pick up at the very start they had JLP had his little voiceover as a little kind of a recap sort of thing. He said, and Christie emerged as one of the game's biggest risk takers.
Oh, did he?
And I thought, okay. Whether that was like a kind of a nice spin on the fact that they were trying to say something positive about her gameplay, which, you know...
Well, look, I agree with him. I mean, playing an individual game the way she did and flip-flopped backwards and forwards is a risky way to play it. She was never really a part of an alliance.
No, but it was that...
In the way that people like Flick were and Brooke were and Lionel were, that she was never that tight in any alliance she was a part of. And so to do that and to flip backwards and forwards the way she had to is highly risky.
It is, but maybe she may have wanted to be in an alliance, but it wasn't really her choice because she wasn't really offered to be... You know, she wasn't offered to join any alliance, so it wasn't really her choice. But I guess the thing I felt, and we'll get to more of this as well, was that it was easy for her to say later on that she had all these things in mind and these subtle moves and things like that. And it's impossible, really, to prove that that was her intention.
That's right.
I mean, she said that in retrospect, and it's possible, but it's a bit hard to prove that. Whereas someone that has made big moves, you can definitely say that person has done this.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely say that about Flick, for example.
Yeah.
Flick made some big moves when she had to. I mean, voting out Brooke was probably the biggest of them all. It was a huge move. I mean, I remember Jenna Louise did something. Connor was trying to mix things up. Sue was doing things. That people were doing big moves, yeah. But in her own way, Christy did. I mean... Just flip-flopping backwards and forwards, they're all big moves.
Yeah.
It's going to annoy everyone ultimately. I mean, she ultimately, as it turned out, she had voted for every single member of the jury. When they were voted out, she voted them out.
Yeah.
Lee had done most, but not, I think there were 2 or 3. I don't think he had actually voted for when the time came. But Christy had voted for every single one of them.
All right. Well, I liked at the start how they had where they acknowledged all the previous castaways with their torches, which that is known as the rites of passage.
Yes, I know it is.
Have you
well, it happens every series.
Well, I didn't think it. I know that they used to, but I thought that they didn't do that anymore.
I can't think of one where they haven't. I think it's a nice thing they do.
I think it is nice, but I thought that they had stopped that. And when I looked into it, I saw a quote from Jeff Probst saying that the ceremony meant more in earlier seasons and doesn't have any value in recent seasons, justifying its absence and extinction. And because I don't recall having seen it for a while actually.
I wonder what he means by that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just for the producer speak for that they...
We haven't got time. We've got the higher priority things to show, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you know... Like,
it is a fair bit of Showtime real estate, isn't it?
It is, and maybe they thought that particularly there's no point talking about some of the earlier castaways that we barely knew anyway. Yeah. Maybe that's what they're getting at, because even with their intros, they don't...
And it was clear from tonight. I mean, Lionel didn't know quite a few of them. There was at one stage, Christy said, Christy had to explain something about...
That's right.
I can't remember who it was now. It was one of the very early people to go, but she had to sort of explain what they were about and who they were. And Lionel clearly, other than laying eyes on them at a tribal council, at a challenge, didn't seem to know them.
Well, also on
and that might be what Jeff's getting at.
Yeah, well, it's maybe just it made too many awkward moments, but also on the US Survivor when they did do it, if there was any survivor that quit during the season, well, then they wouldn't do that torch. But they did do it for Pete, though, on our Survivor, didn't they?
I think he was a different case. I think there was an acknowledgement in the case of Pete that he was genuinely ill and couldn't go on. He didn't. And he didn't want to quit.
No.
He didn't want to quit.
It wasn't
but he did it because he had to. He did it also for altruistic reasons for the tribe he was on. And he felt like he was weighing them down. So I think you can give Pete a bit of credit for that.
Yeah.
And then the loved ones finally came out. We had to wait till day 55, and the loved ones finally came out. I thought I did not think it was happening.
No,
I thought it was
that's right.
done. We're not having loved ones in this series. I thought that was a real shame because I always enjoy that part of the season.
That's
Every
right.
time when the loved ones come out, and it really seems to give some people a massive boost to get them to the end. And I thought they're not going to do it, and then all of a sudden there they were to watch the challenge. I mean,
For the final immunity challenge, which they haven't done this on the US Survivor, have they?
not that I can remember.
Not like this.
No, not like this.
And do you think having the loved ones there, is it extra motivation? Is it motivating or is it distracting possibly?
I
Because
think
it could go either way.
I think for Christy it was absolutely motivating.
Yeah.
I think without that, I don't think Christy would have won that challenge.
Yeah, no, it's there was certainly a high emotional element there. But did you catch Christy's dad's T-shirt? Did you look? Did you see his T-shirt?
Yeah, no.
It just had the lesser. It was a black T-shirt.
Oh yes, actually I did see it. It was
white
I
letters.
greater than you or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I thought, does that really mean I greater than you? Because that sounds a bit, that sounds a bit sort of condescending, doesn't it?
Who knows what it stands for?
And anyway, I looked it up on the internet, and of course, it's a T-shirt you can buy, and it's called a superiority T-shirt.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. And it means exactly what it says it means.
Sales have just gone through the roof now. It's been on Survivor, and we're plugging it.
Exactly. It means I am better than you, basically. So, which
Wow.
he didn't seem like that kind
He
of a
didn't seem
person,
like that
and
sort of
Christy
guy.
doesn't seem like that kind of a person either. So it was just a really weird T-shirt to wear, I thought.
Maybe the producers gave it to him. I don't know. So we had Elle's sister, we had Lee's sister, and we had Christy's dad.
That's
And
right.
Christy was quite beside herself at the arrival of her dad.
She was.
It meant something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
And
this
then, so simple, such a simple challenge, but
it's an oldie but a goodie.
so brutal. Just and the dramatic positioning of it on the volcanic cliffs there with the tide coming in, waves crashing over them. It just
Well, it's been done on
It has been done
on
before, yeah.
US Survivor, including the very first season
yeah.
immunity challenge.
Yeah.
But it's never.
And Christy alluded to that as well, that Richard Hatch was involved in this
Yeah,
challenge.
yeah. But it's never been done in such a dramatic
Oh.
and epic location, though. I think that this Survivor totally killed any other version of
Unbelievable.
it.
Just unbelievable. It had just everything. And that it went on for... Well, Elle went out at the 6-hour 20 mark, and it didn't seem to go on very much longer after that.
No,
I think
no,
it was
that's
about
right.
6 hours 40 or something, I think was in the end, which is an incredibly long time to stand on two small poles leaning forward, touching a...
Well, I believe
an
it was more than double the length of any of the US Survivor
Really?
times. Yeah,
Really?
so
Unbelievable.
which I was amazed about.
And just the way it ended too, just the sheer, none of that was made up. That was sheer emotion at the end, and
that was hard to watch.
that was very hard to watch.
Well, Christy was saying towards the end there, she was just pleading with
Let me
Lee.
have it. Let me have it.
And I wasn't really sure what was going through Lee's mind. I thought he may actually accept, only because I think that he would believe her if she said that she would take him. And
And as subsequent events revealed, she was quite genuine, I think, about that.
yeah.
She would have done that.
And maybe he thought his chances against Christy would have been pretty good anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe he was hurting so badly as well. It seemed like a pretty good.
But I also
good way
think
to
what would
end
have
it.
been going through his mind that if he accepted that deal, he's just thrown Elle under the bus. Accepting that deal had implications for Elle's game. And
that's
that
right.
wasn't something I think he was prepared to do.
No, that's right.
But you're right. It was very hard to watch. I mean, poor Elle. I mean, she got a sore wrist and basically had to stop. Just couldn't go any further.
I thought it was great how JLP rushes in to help, because I don't think Jeff would do anything like that.
I reckon he would.
But not. JLP seemed like he was in there like a flash.
Yeah,
he was.
They probably didn't
he
have
was
too many
great.
people on that rocky headland actually, so he might have actually been the first responder.
That's a good point. Actually,
and he is a trained doctor.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So that wasn't that surprising. But then when Lee fell out, did he just slip? What happened there? Like, there was the whole emotional discussion going on between him and Christy, and he basically, I think, decided, no, I'm not going to cave into that deal. I'm going to stick at it. And he said, stay strong, keep going.
I think he just faltered. I think his I think his hand grip kind of loosened.
Yeah.
He kind of wobbled a bit, and then that was all over then.
Because I don't think Christy had much left.
No.
I mean, she was almost gone as well, and it was So, and then they were both down for the count, and oh my gosh!
And you had the dramatic music, and it was
dramatic music, and Christy was crying and being warmed up, and it was a tough few minutes there.
And then Christy's dad gets to put the necklace on her as well.
I mean, oh gosh,
crowning moment.
oh God, I was beside myself. It was pretty emotional stuff. They handled that very, very well.
It was.
And look, and a fitting last challenge. I mean,
it was.
You know,
it was very good.
It was purely a test of who wants it the most. Really,
I thought it was, even though Christy was sort of disparaged a little bit earlier on that she wouldn't have much hope of winning a challenge. It was probably a good challenge for her, given that she was the youngest of the three as well. And it's probably something where, you know, if you've got a younger body, you know, your joints and muscles and things like that, maybe it's just a bit easier doing that kind of a thing. You know, because Lee was talking about he can't bend down because his knees are shot and all that sort of stuff.
As we found out during the course of tonight's episode, he's had back surgery as well, and was told he'd never be able to, you know, play cricket again, let alone competitively. And so he's obviously, you know, he's after a tough life of professional sport, he's obviously carrying some injuries into middle age. And
that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, in awe of all three for being able to do that. It was amazing stuff. Amazing.
And Tribal.
Well, Tribal was pretty quick in the end, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was a classic though when the jury came in and saw who was wearing the necklace. They could not believe it.
Gobsmacked. They couldn't believe that had happened.
No, it was just a classic reaction, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the pitches. You know, Elle and Lee were asked to make a pitch as to who they should take through. Elle said, "What you see is what you get with me. I've tried to support you all the way. I'm less likely to get jury votes than Lee." And then Lee said, "Look, it's your choice. I'm not going to put any pressure on it. Whatever she decides is fine. Is fine by me. No pressure." And
it was probably pointless in the end because I think Christy had made up her mind before anyway.
I think he was. Yeah, as I say, I mean, I think she'd made certain promises there, and she was always going to take him. So Elle was voted out.
That's right.
And Jenna Louise just shook her head. and look, I must admit, I was thinking from a strategic point of view, I felt taking Lee to the end was the least, from a purely strategic point of view. I felt Christy had a better chance of beating. Now, as it turns out, it didn't matter, but Christy had a better chance of beating Elle than Lee. I felt, and that's probably what Jenna Louise was reacting to when she was shaking her head like that. But anyway. We will know what happened next.
Well, Elle, to be honest, we didn't see much of you in the first half of the season, did we? It really took a long while to even know who this Elle person was, so it was a bit hard to work out something to say. Have you got something that you could say for Elle, Craig?
Oh, look, I just think she played it really hard. She was very committed. She formed some good alliances. She followed through on them. She stayed true to it. I think she stayed pretty true most of the way through. Didn't get overly emotional about things. Played an outstanding game. She got to the final three.
Good effort. The tribe has spoken. Back at camp. And Chester's still there.
Good old Chester. Woo! Chester made it to the final two as well.
He did.
I'd like to know what happened to Chester after the cameras stopped rolling.
Well, I guess he's just left to run free and wild.
Is he still in Samoa running about?
In the Samoan beaches
is
or
that what
something
happened?
like that.
Or maybe Matt ended up with him. Matt did have a special bond with old Chester, but it was good to see him there.
Yeah, well, maybe it's best not to think too hard about what's happened to Chester.
Maybe. Christy was on a little bit of a high here, wasn't she?
She was.
She was.
That was a real turning moment for her when she won that last challenge. It's like a switch had been flicked, wasn't it?
It completely different. Christy emerged at that point. She was just so excited.
Bacon, there's bacon.
I know, just exactly. Although Lee was pretty excited about the bacon as well. Looked like quite a nice little breakfast he was whipping up there. There was some eggs in there, and there was a bit of chopped up bacon in there, and I was going, oh, that looks pretty good.
I was getting hungry.
Yeah, I was getting very hungry. Lee had no idea what he'd say to the jury. Admitted that he'd gone in there to play an honest game, but it was very hard. Turned out to be very hard to actually do that within the game of Survivor. And then all of a sudden we're at Tribal Council.
That's right. That's
Did you
right.
catch what Lee said as Elle walked in?
No, what was that?
He said, "Oh, she looks pretty, doesn't she?"
Oh, that's
Did
right.
you hear that?
Yeah.
I went, "Oh, isn't that nice?"
Oh, he's just betraying himself, isn't he?
Well, yeah. I think
Now-
we all know.
Well, we start with the opening statements.
Yeah. Well, these were. Well, this is beautifully set up for the shock value of what came later, because I mean, Lee said everything you'd expect him to say, didn't he? He sort of said, I came in to play a trustworthy game. I was keen to play Survivor the way I would live my life outside the game. It was hard to do that, as it turned out, but as much as possible, I did that. I've done it for my boys. All the predictable stuff.
It's a pretty standard
thing you'd expect Lee to say.
That's right.
And particularly someone who has a background as a professional sportsman, where trust in your teammates and all that sort of stuff is a huge thing. So no great surprises. But then Christie's pitch to the jury was, I've got to be honest, I thought she'd shot herself in the foot.
And judging from the jury's reaction as well, I think that they thought the same thing. They thought, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, it was as a pitch, it certainly didn't convince me. I don't really know where to start here, but she was saying things like, you thought I was crazy, but I kept going, and you'll find a way to make it to the end. And she tried her best, and it was amazing to see how it unfolded. And I got through 2 tribes, and no one who else can say that. I can say that, and it just
through 20 tribal councils, you just had to fight tooth and nail through everyone, and
all those things, and it didn't come over to me as particularly gracious. It almost felt like it was a little bit boastful or something, and I just didn't think she was convincing the jury of it. Their reactions were not that positive. So
no, that's right.
And I really thought, oh gosh, I'm just really don't think that's going to do it. So I was already at that point. I was pretty sure Lee was going to win it.
No, actually, I was of the feeling by that stage, I thought that it would be a lot closer than I originally thought, but I didn't know which way it was going to go. But I thought it was going to be close at that stage.
Yeah. Anyway, so the jury then stood up and individually addressed them.
Yep.
Elle went first.
What selfless acts?
Selfless acts. Yeah.
Did you do, which seemed like it was almost like a setup in a way that she could make Lee look good.
She would have known the answer to that question. Surely they would have talked about that. But then, he talked about helping family and some philanthropic work he wanted to do, and giving the boys a good education. And then,
I have to say though, looking after mum and dad and education for your kids I wouldn't really class that as selfless though. Really, like it's not directly for yourself, but it's for your immediate family. So it's not, that's not.
But that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. I get a little bit annoyed with these, when juries at tribal council get a little bit holier than thou sometimes and expect it all to be given away to charity or whatever. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
It doesn't. I don't think that was particularly the case with this series, but certainly in America we've seen it plenty of times where people get voted down because they're actually going to, they're going to use it, not going to use it for a charitable purpose. They're actually going to use it on themselves because they actually need the money.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So it was good that didn't really come out that much. And then Christy said an amazing thing. She said her goal of a vow was to eat through everyone.
I was really struggling to try and think through that exactly what she was getting at.
I think it was basically just to one by one pick them off, and so that combined with what she just said in her opening pitch to the jury, I've got to be honest, I was sitting there shaking my head, going, I can't see this going well.
No.
So that was, and then she said not to bag you, but that's what I had to do, and Elle said cool, and went back to her seat.
When we had Flick come out,
yeah,
and she was saying Christy frustrated so many people, including the viewers.
Yep,
I would say viewers at home, and she basically said that you didn't really play the game. Christy's response was that she had, but she'd made small, subtle moves. Now.
And that the people who made the big moves, and Flick was obviously one of these, were the ones who got voted out.
Exactly. And that was probably the first thing that she said that I thought, well, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That making big moves often means that then you go next because people don't really want to...
Well, yeah, it puts a target on your back.
Exactly.
We've seen that a lot. And this is where the way Christie played the game is a perfectly valid way to do it. I mean, but she was putting a target on her back as well. The way she flipped backwards and forwards, and no one really knew which way she was going to go at any one moment. I mean, that's another way to put a target on your back that's just risky.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It's risky, and players like that often also get removed because you just don't know what you're going to do. You can't rely on them, and there's too much risk having them around.
But still, she wasn't as bad as Barry.
No.
Because Barry, you had no idea what he was going to do.
No.
So.
Well, I don't think Barry quite knew what he was going to do until the moment he arrived at the voting box. But so that was Flick. I Flick, to her credit, I think asked a decent question. I thought she, having been only very recently voted off, I think she potentially could have gone quite bitter. She didn't do that, and I think that's a good thing. Brookie, yes,
good old Brookie.
And then. Wow, what a question to Lee.
Was that really appropriate, and was it relevant? What did it have to do with anything, really?
Well, what she said is the jury correct in assuming that you and Elle have a romantic relationship and then you've been leading Elle on? I went, whoa, where did that come from? And Lee said, no, there's no romance. I haven't done that. Who knows what will happen outside the game, but no, I haven't done that. Maybe... Was Brooke just trying to get at how genuine is this alliance that they've had the whole way through? Is that what that was about?
I'm not sure what the point of the question was, really. Was only if she was just trying to see whether Lee was perhaps not as truthful and was more dishonest than maybe what people thought. And it was just a way to try and sort of say, okay, well, maybe Lee's not the good guy that everyone thinks he is, but...
Yeah, don't know. It was interesting, and then she addressed Christie and made a comment along the lines of I think she described Lee there in that discussion as Daddy Lee, and you let Daddy Lee sort of basically make the moves and take you along on them. To which Christie said, "No, we're actually working together." But let other people think that they had control of the situation. Yeah,
exactly, and I mean that's not a bad strategy too. If that's what she was actually doing.
Well, that's the small target strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, plenty of politicians do that in election campaigns where they, they say as little as possible, or it's similar to that.
Yeah. Good point.
So that was Brooke. Brooke would have been a fascinating contributor at Tribal Council had Flick made the final two. So we were perhaps denied some very entertaining television there.
Exactly. Well, then we had JL, who basically summed up the whole thing, didn't she?
Yeah, nice to meet you tonight,
yeah,
Christy, she said. Right. And then didn't really address her anything beyond that.
No, because I guess she must have been happy enough with what Christy had shown thus far. So then she turns to Lee.
And ripped into him.
Yeah, both barrels.
Both barrels. You're arrogant, you're ignorant, you accused me of being here for the money. Why should I vote for you? Is basically what she said. Do you even recall that conversation? Was that not really?
Yeah, I don't remember that. It's quite possible that it wasn't actually on a TV episode. It was something that was said between them.
Oh, look, Lee responded, but I don't remember hearing very much. But I certainly don't have anything written down. So that was interesting. So there was obviously some perhaps something we weren't aware of that between them. She obviously was, to call him arrogant and ignorant is a big call, and I don't know.
And I'm not sure where that came from because we didn't really see it, did we? It's just
not aware of that. Kylie did what I thought she would do. I think Kylie, just being the nice person that I think she is she just made a little speech. This means a lot. I have deep respect for what this title means. I didn't ask a question.
Yeah, I actually, to be honest, I'd kind of tuned out halfway through her.
Stuart, honestly.
Her talk, and then I thought she's finished.
Yeah, she finished. She made her speech. Questions? She made a speach. I think what she was basically saying is, "Well done. I've got a lot of respect." I think what she was basically saying is, "I take this very seriously. My vote's not going to be trivial. I've thought very hard about this. I respect the game. I respect you for getting this far." And just basically wanted to say that. Yeah, I think that's all that was about. Good on her. And then Sam stood up and had a bit of a crack at Lee. I was surprised at this. I thought they were closer than this.
Well, they were until
they got voted out, I suppose.
Until Lee voted Sam out, yeah.
But he said to Lee, "I can't ignore the fact that you've taken advantage of people." Yeah, interesting. Really, really interesting comment there from Sam.
Although Lee said that Christy probably played himself as much as he played her in the end.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, she actually said that earlier in response to I can't remember who she said that to, but yeah. So anyway, but there wasn't a lot there. Then we had Nick, who's waited a long time, as have we.
I bet you have,
as
Nick.
have we.
Yes.
As have we. Although it sounds like he's been getting his frustrations out at the jury villa rather than
on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I think perhaps his performance at tribal council was not as dramatic as we might have been hoping.
No, well, he first says that you are not the Christie I've been watching for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Which is true. But then he gets into
I know
Lee
very
about
little of you. He said, "I
morality
can't articulate your thoughts. It comes out as incoherent. The
right.
way you talk comes out as incoherent as your gameplay." But then he came out and put your balls to the wall, and wow.
Mm.
But then he really gave it to Lee, didn't he?
That's right. And I don't know. I mean, is he being too pedantic to try and pick on someone for not living an absolute pure or playing a pure game?
I guess it's a fair point though. If Lee's continually saying this, that his objective was to play this fair, honest, honourable game. And Nick obviously feels that for whatever reason he doesn't feel necessarily that was true.
Yeah,
I mean Nick definitely proved himself to be the school English teacher here because some of the stuff he was saying, I feel like you snookered yourself and you'd retreat to this magical morality land and talked about the moral high ground and all this sort of stuff. And it was really very entertaining. Very. What do you call it? No, he called it a pompous place of morality. Don't know if I can award the win to a hypocrite who doesn't uphold their moral values. Oh, that's harsh. That's harsh. And in response to which Lee said, "Look, I tried to be honest. I tried very hard within Survivor to act the way I said I would." And
I mean, it was a fair enough comment, but I think overall Lee, even though he didn't really say anything or didn't do anything wrong with his answers, he didn't really do himself any great favours either, did he? He didn't really, sort of push his case all that forward.
And he was copying a lot more criticism than I thought he would. I thought he was basically loved by everybody, and certainly that's the edit. And clearly the edit was designed to make him appear a good guy. Yeah. But there were obviously some tensions throughout. Then Sue gets up. I've been looking forward to seeing what Sue would say, and she said, "Sweetheart, you did my head in."
I've really missed Sue.
I have too. Sue's
and her little quips have just been fantastic.
Sue is like, "Sweetheart, you did my head in." I just laughed out loud when she said that. And you changed a lot. And Christy apologised to her for being on the wrong side of some of that, but had to move the heat off her. And then said, and I thought this was interesting, and maybe it's true, but I wouldn't have thought so. Christy said she knew who was going every single time.
Yeah, that's a bit hard to know that, isn't it? To fact check that.
Maybe she did. Maybe that's quite honest, but I was surprised to hear that. I wouldn't have thought that was the case. Because I in a lot of cases, I don't think she was the one orchestrating the move. She was going along with other people when she realised which way the tide was going.
Well, that was the impression I got. That's right.
Yeah. And then finally, Matt.
Good old Matt. There's two sides to Christy, apparently.
Yeah.
There's the nice, caring Christy.
Yep.
And there's the manic...
panicked. Manic and panicked.
That's right, manic and panicked.
Yeah. And then he said something which I really liked. He says, "I'm possibly voting for you to win my childhood dream." So a lot was made about Christy's childhood dream. She's been watching the show since she was 8. She said she was going to be on it. But clearly Matt feels the same way. I'm possibly voting for you to win my childhood dream. That's a very powerful thing to say.
Matt, just in general, he was very emotional during the whole thing as well, and that was really a nice moment seeing his reactions to various things during. It
was, and Christy, I think then had probably the best answer, I think, to any of these discussions. She talked about how she'd had some panic attacks, which made her realise that she suffers from anxiety, which she didn't even know before she went into Survivor. But she picked herself up, and anyone can beat the odds. It was a pretty powerful little speech.
Well, I guess in the end, she really played that underdog card, and she was the perfect underdog against Lee, who really is the opposite of Christy, in many ways.
Yeah,
and
very, very different people.
People like an underdog, don't they?
Yeah,
So.
well, they do. That's right. And Australians are a bit like that, aren't we? We do tend to go for the underdog. Anyway, at the end of all that, despite the heat that Lee had copped from the jury members, I basically thought, I thought, yep, 8-1. My prediction was it was going to be, I'm going to make a confession, I thought it was going to be 8-1 to Lee. I got it completely and utterly wrong.
Well, as I said before, I didn't know who was going to win, but I thought it was going to be close, but I didn't really know. But I wasn't expecting the votes to fall the way that they did.
Absolutely not. So,
well, hang on. Then before the votes were read, JLP brought in Lee's family and Christy's family.
Now that was nice. That was great, fantastic. And I think they probably did that in America. We have the reunion show, and they're all at the reunion show, and they've done that right back. I think the only series where they've ever counted the votes there and then was the very first season.
That's right.
Richard Hatch won.
That's right.
After that point, every single season they've just picked them up, and in varying degrees of dramatic fashion, Jeff has then taken the votes to whichever city in America where they're going to be voted in. So we've had him on a jet ski past.
That's right.
Past the Statue of Liberty and arriving in all sorts of dramatic ways. If they weren't going to do that, and we've known for a while they weren't, I think that's a good thing to do, to bring the family.
It was.
Like that. Yeah,
it was great.
It was absolutely great.
I'd
love to see that again.
It just really turned the screws. There's one more notch on the whole emotional level of that.
It was just like, what? There's another twist? Are we not done yet? It was just like, that was great. I really enjoyed that. And I teared up yet again as all that was going on. So that was that. Christy was beside herself again.
Yes, yep. And okay, Craig, can you read us through the votes for one last time?
Well, one last time. We had 9 members of the jury. This time they're voting for someone to win, and it was, still to my amazement, 8-1, as I predicted, but not to Lee. The sole survivor of season 1, Australian Survivor, was Christy.
To Christy, yes. Well done, Christy.
Congratulations to Christy. Brilliant. Brilliant. And look, afterwards we got to see what they all had to say, what all the jury members had to say as they were voting. And I think all of them, or maybe not all of them, but most of them were just highly amazed they were doing it. Nick was shaking his head. I can't believe I've just done that.
Well, Nick was almost speechless for once, wasn't he?
He just couldn't believe that he was voting the way he did. Elle was the only one who voted for Lee, and that was no surprise. I think that was clearly going to happen. But when people like Brooke, Flick, Jenna Louise, who was shaking her head quite a lot, through tribal council, Sue I wasn't that surprised about. They did have a bit of an alliance going there for a little while, but ultimately Christy did turn on her, and Sue said, "You're still a naughty girl, but I'm going to vote for you." It was amazing. Matt described Christy's performance and the fact as inspiring. It was. I was genuinely stunned.
Yes,
it was a one final very fitting twist in what's been a brilliant season of Survivor.
It has been.
Yeah.
And even though we didn't get that reunion show, it's at least they did finish on a great high note with that finale episode. So I don't feel too badly about not having the finale episode. And I guess we've got the consolation prize.
You mean the reunion?
Reunion. The consolation prize is that we have the Survivor family feud on Sunday.
Oh, there you go.
So we have a kind of a reunion there, and
that might be worth watching actually.
Well, we'll find out what the survey says. That's what we always find out. Survey says.
That's very true. So that was that. Hard to believe it's all over after. It's been quite an investment of time, hasn't it, over the last couple of months?
It has
3
been.
nights a week, most of the way through.
When we first started this podcast, I was expecting to be like US Survivor.
Yeah.
I thought it would be one episode per week.
I thought we'd be every Sunday night doing it.
That's right, and it turned out to be a lot bigger than that.
It did. It's been fun.
So it has been fun, and thanks everyone for listening. It's been great.
Absolutely, we've had great support from our listeners.
We have
very, very consistent numbers of you downloading our podcasts every time, and we really appreciate that. We had various. We had time away. We had some fun and games with. We were in different locations at once, different time zones and locations at one stage.
Like that.
I've been sick throughout it a couple of times as well. So we've just thank you for sticking with us, and I hope you've enjoyed the chat.
And thanks everyone for your comments as well. It's been good to get some feedback as well.
So we're back next year.
Next year?
Yeah, season 2.
We'll see how it goes, hey?
We'll be back.
Will it be on Samoa?
Who knows?
I mean, it's a great location. I don't mind if it's on the same place pretty much, because even if they go somewhere else, it's probably going to look pretty much the same. It'll be some other tropical location, won't it?
Yeah, it's great to see they've announced the new series. Look, I think we've got in JLP. I think we've got a great host who really developed into the role. It'd be really interesting to go back and see some of the early episodes and compare them against now. I think he's a fine host of Survivor, and I hope he's back for season 2.
Oh, he's been great.
Done a great job.
He was very comfortable in the role.
Yep. Did a great job. I said all the way through, I thought Samoa was the star of the show, and they had some spectacular footage they were showing there. A great cast, some fascinating people, great challenges all the way through. We had a couple of episodes that were a little bit flat, and that was probably a function of it just went on for so long.
Well, hopefully they can increase their viewer base a little bit as well, because I was reading that the last sort of week or so that the ratings haven't been fantastic, and the block has still been killing it in this time slot,
really? Right.
which I find amazing, because the block has been going on for ages. And
so Survivor though, not the Australian version.
No,
Survivor's
that's right.
Going
That's
on a very
right.
long time.
And Channel 10 really has done a fantastic job on the Australian Survivor, and I hope that more viewers tune in. So.
Yeah. No, it was and the interesting thing for me is I watched a couple of the episodes of the latest American season, and it doesn't feel quite right now. I've got very used to hearing Australian accents and the way JLP goes about it, and the way Australians, I think, just play the game slightly differently, and different sort of things get talked about, and the dynamics are just different in Australian Survivor compared to America, and the American one for me now feels different, and that's really interesting, and I think I now prefer the Australian version.
Well, I haven't seen any of the US current one yet, so it's all recorded. So I have to go back and
you're gonna binge watch it, are you?
Yeah, I'll watch it in the off season in the Australian Survivor off season. That's right.
Absolutely. But look, all round, I've loved it. It's been great. Can't wait for season 2.
Okay, one last time. There's the theme music. Thanks everyone for listening.
Good to be here.
We'll perhaps see you next year.
Hopefully. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you in 2017.
See you later.
Bye.